In this lesson titled Working with Dates and Times, we're in Lesson 02, Entering Data, and I'm now on Worksheet Dates and Times. As we learned in previous lessons, Excel has a lot of shortcuts for helping us to enter text and numbers. That's also true for entering dates and times, and here we're going to explore some of those. Let's enter our new date, and I'm going to put it here in B6. I'm going to enter the date 3/23/17, and when I hit enter, you'll see that it automatically put in 2017 for me. I only needed to enter the 17. Let's try another date, 2-14-18. In this case, it not only entered the 2018 for me correctly, but it also converted my dashes into the more common slashes. So you can use several methods for entering dates, and Excel will accept those, and it will also reformat those for you. Let's take a look now on entering times. We have two different times here. If you're familiar with military time, you may recognize this 1750. If I click on it and then look up into my formula bar, I see that 1750 has been interpreted by Excel as 5:50 p.m. So Excel will accept military time, and then by simply formatting the text, which we'll learn in other lessons, you can display it as PM or as military time. Let's take a look at some other shortcuts available to us. Here I'm going to type 1:30, a space, and I'm going to hit the P on my keyboard, lowercase p, and hit enter. Excel automatically formatted that as PM. The same is also true with AM, 1:30, space, lowercase a, enter. So just to be clear, you need to make sure there's always a space, and you can use upper or lowercase p or a. I'll type 1:30 with no space and an a. And you'll see two things. One, it didn't recognize it as a time. It did not format it and say AM. It also has it left aligned. There's another way that you can find out if you've entered some data incorrectly. Let's go back over here to dates, and let's enter a date that doesn't exist. 2/29/18. Because there's no 29th of February in 2018, the date wasn't recognized as being valid, and so it's left justified. If you ever see dates or times that aren't justified correctly, you can know that it's probably a date or time that's been entered incorrectly, or it's a date that doesn't exist. I want to combine a few ideas with you now. In a previous lesson, we talked about using the very powerful autofill tool to recognize patterns or series and then automatically repeat those for us. The same is true for dates. Let's type in a date here and hit enter. It formats it for us correctly. Now I'm going to select it and drag my autofill handle to the right. And it automatically added one day to my dates. Here you can see that there's not enough room to show the date, and so we're seeing these pound signs, sometimes called railroad tracks. To correct that, you can simply grab the end of one of your columns and pull it over. We'll talk more in other lessons about how to do that very efficiently. There's also another aspect to working with dates and autofill that's very powerful. Let's say we enter a date here that's 1 week away from 3/23/18 and hit enter. So now I have dates that are 1 week apart. If I select both of these dates and then pull down my autofill, each date will be 1 week apart. The reason that worked is because first I selected the pattern 1 week apart, and then I drag down my autofill. If I select only a single date and I drag, then it only adds one date at a time. In this case, 1 day at a time. This can be very useful if you needed dates that were 3 days apart, 5 days apart, a week apart, or say that you needed a list of times that were 45 minutes apart. Let's show that example quickly here. Here I've listed 2 times, 1:15 and 2 o'clock. This could also represent 1 hour and 15 minutes and 2 hours. I can select both of them and drag down, and I will get hours and minutes that are 45 minutes apart. So the important concepts here is you can use dashes or you can use slashes. You can use simply the last 2 digits of a 4-year. Because Excel needs to make a decision when it only sees 2 numbers for the 4-number date, it has a breaking point, and that breaking point is at 29. So if I change this date to 30, you'll see it assumes it's 1930 versus 2029. So just be aware, sometimes you may need to enter all 4 digits just to be clear if you're not sure where that breaking point is. And in the future, Excel may change that breaking point.